that the only person that you really have at the end of the day is yourself. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote my first book, Conquer Yourself, because you're not competing against the guy next to you, the business on the other side of the country. You're competing against the person in the mirror.
Alec Wons in the building. That's metaphorically, obviously, you're in a different place, but that phenomenal background, dude. Did you build that?
I wish I would have, but no, I did not.
Oh, that is so awesome. Was it a gift?
It's actually, the company, this is kind of a little studio we set up where I do my podcast recordings with first responders, but the flag is made of like old retired fire hose. So
yes.
Reuse, recycle, and it turned out to be pretty cool.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that is phenomenal. Well, Alec, hey, thank you so much for being here, taking the opportunity. This is kind of a newer series that we're doing with high performers. So we talk a lot with experts about what it takes to improve ourselves in the worlds of our well-being. But these episodes are really about people who are already doing it, who are already living it. So I'm excited for the opportunity to dive in a little bit onto your high performance and your high achievement and kind of what helps you get up in the morning and do the awesome things that you do. But tell us a little bit about kind of your background in terms of kind of what got you to where you are today and maybe some of the awesome things that you've been able to do along the way.
Yeah, thank you for having me here. It's been actually a funny story when you look at it. Born and raised Kansas City, played soccer my whole life. I played for one of the top academies in the country, and then actually took a gap year between college and high school to train with a professional team. So I did not end up getting a contract, but went to go on to play Division I college soccer at Marquette University, where I majored in exercise physiology there. Didn't really have it easy. I walked on there. I'm not ashamed to say it. And it's one of the best lessons that I've learned, especially 2 years in. I actually ended up developing arthritis in my foot. So I actually had to stop playing. And all the buddies that you were with, you ended up being on the field with them to doing their laundry and ordering their food. So it was still great to be around them and everything. And it was obviously a shock at the time because the identity was built up in the athlete in me. But it was the biggest blessing that I could have ever received because it got me on the fast track about thinking what's next in life. So it helped me be able to start thinking about starting a couple businesses. What do I want out of life? Kind of stuff along that track. So after my senior year, I ended up starting a mental health company at the school to be able to help promote the mental health of college student athletes and students, just because at that time, it was a little more publicized that student athletes were taking their own lives. Not to say it doesn't happen today, but it was just a little more published then, which probably for the sake of everyone else, it's probably good. It's not too out there sometimes, which it was a really cool experience. I got connected with the whole C-suite university and got right up to the point where we're going to launch the pilot, but there was just a little bit of red tape. So didn't end up fully taking off, but nonetheless, a great experience in the business development world where I was actually introduced to an executive from Silicon Valley who became a mentor for me, who helped get me into sales after my career in strength and conditioning, where I was working with NFL players and NFL offseason, which was amazing in Phoenix. Really loved the business world. Ended up going into human resources sales for about 6 months. Determined that was not my cup of tea. And actually that same mentor who guided me through part of my business career at Marquette became the CEO of a company in Milwaukee, Ready Rebound, where we help first responders like with expedited healthcare. And he ended up bringing me on board here. And it has been the best experience of my entire life. So I'm a firm believer that one opportunity, one person can truly change the trajectory of your life. And I'm living proof of that today.
That's phenomenal. What a great story. And if people have not touted this to you enough, you need to hear it more. But you have such a servant mindset to go from, hey, I'm on the field, I'm playing with these guys, to I'm doing their laundry, and seeing that as an opportunity and not as like a punishment speaks a lot to your character. That's awesome of you. And I think that the fact that you can have that mindset and that you took that circumstance that you went through where you got injured, it was during your college career, and you saw the silver lining, right? Because a lot of athletes, because I worked in athletics for quite a few years, and a lot of athletes, either they have a debilitating injury their senior year. I knew of a wrestler at Purdue that had an issue with that and lost his identity very quickly. Or individuals who think they've been brought up until their senior year of college thinking they're going to make it to the pros, right? Mm-hmm. That's the dream. Yeah. And then they find quickly in 1 year that that's not going to happen. And now all of a sudden they've lost that identity and they've graduated college. So they've not only have they lost their identity as an athlete, but they've lost all the support systems that they've had around them to keep them, in other identities of their lives, as a friend, as a student, as a whatever it happens to be. And so that silver lining for you, it sounds like, was I still had those support systems around me because I got injured early in my college career. And now I still have my friends. I still have my direction in life as a student, those things. Did you find that to be the case?
I did actually. I mean, at first, I don't want to sugarcoat it. Like, it took a while to be able to accept the new identity because I'd always identified myself as a soccer player. I always wanted to play pro. And when that no longer was feasible, it was a good slap in the face. So there was a good while I felt like I was kind of just roaming without a purpose in a way. But knowing that I had the support of my teammates, that I had support of the coaching staff, and I feel like that gave me even more respect from my teammates because a lot of them thought that I would just maybe leave altogether. And one thing I do is whenever I'm in something, I'm always in it, nothing halfway. And I honestly, it maybe helped just to accelerate the path of finding who I was and what I wanted to do even quicker. So very grateful for the experience, and kind of just helped me be me, realizing that the perceptions I thought others would have of me when I stopped doing the thing that I thought people liked me for was completely false. It just kind of gave me permission to fully be myself. And that really has just been a springboard for everything else I've done since that point, that the only person that you really have at the end of the day is yourself. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote my first book, Conquer Yourself, because you're not competing against the guy next to you, the business on the other side of the country. You're competing against the person in the mirror. And if I can look at myself every day and be like, I gave 110% effort and I just had positive intent with what I'm doing, then that is enough, even if I don't get the desired outcome that I want. Because I used to be outcome oriented all the time, and you set your kind of self up for disappointment there. So just being more process oriented has really been helpful and continues to be a snowball effect today.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You touched on one of your books. I think you have 3. And so we'll talk more about that later on because we definitely want to mention those things. But one of the questions I have for you is, you talked about this idea of identity, wrapping ourselves up in our identity. So many people struggle with this idea of, I think this is what people want of me. And therefore, if I'm not doing this thing, if I can't do this thing, then I'm worthless. Right. Mm-hmm. And in athletics, it's huge. There's, like you mentioned, a lot of stats on mental sickness as it relates to athletes and getting injured and losing identity, or this sense of purpose, which I think a lot of times we misconstrue what we do with our sense of purpose. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's a whole nother story of things that I work on with my clients. But one of the things that you brought up, which is so powerful, is this idea that I derive my sense of worth by what I think other people think of me. And there's a concept in psychology, which is that, I am not who I think I am. And I am not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am. Right. So it's this notion that whatever I think you're thinking of me is how I identify myself. And the fatal flaw in that is you have no idea what other people are thinking. And you went through that, right? Like you receive this input from other people of no, that's not why I care about you, Alec. That's not why, I want to be friends with you or I want to be connected with you. So how did that come about? Did they just happen to bring it up to you? Did you speak to them about that? Kind of what did that process look like of you recognizing that these are not the things that people actually think of me?
I think one of the first things I talked, because when you were in college, you and your teammates, you guys take classes together, you live together, you're in the same showers together after practice, you literally go through the best times and worst times together. And when I asked my teammates, I was like, are you going to think differently of me? Like, you're still our friend. Like, nothing changes. If anything, we have more respect for you for what we're doing now. And that was a real big eye opener for me because I think it's always in front of you, but sometimes it just hits you. And this really made me realize that the worst enemy you actually have is between your 2 ears and the stories that you tell yourself and the things that you think of there. And how a lot of the time people aren't even thinking about you. You're always thinking about yourself and what you're doing, but you realize a lot of the time people aren't even thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves and how maybe other people are perceiving them. And I've always kind of had this servant mindset just ever since I can remember, but that also kind of bled into people pleasing. Whether it was going the extra mile in practice, whether it was doing the extra work in school, or in personal relationships, you try to make the other person happy, which is good to a certain extent. But to the point, I would always maybe water other people's gardens, but then not leave any for my own at the end of the day, which started to become a problem, which I never thought it'd be a problem if you help people too much. So I went from people pleaser to trying to be able to fit into groups I thought I wanted to be a part of, to then realizing that wasn't working. So kind of taking the road less traveled, which is a really good book, by the way, but kind of being alone for a while. And at first was lonely, but then not lonely, just being alone and finding your path and the way you want to go. And from there, it's another like springboard effect for me. It's now I feel like I'm being me. I'm being the attractive character that I want to embody. And now I'm attracting like-minded people to me rather than seeking out the other groups I thought had to begin with. So by doing you, being you, maybe not necessarily caring what others think, you attract the people around you who are supposed to be there. And those ones who you maybe initially thought wanted to be around start to kind of fall off because they're not serving for you.
Yeah, that I couldn't agree more. And I think one of the points there that you kind of touched on, which is this idea of being servant minded and being a people pleaser, right? Those things come kind of hand in hand because you want to see people are pleased by the things that you are doing by serving them. And one of the flaws there, one of the traps that you can get caught in is when you put your sense of self-worth on whether or not people appreciate that, whether or not people are thoughtful and thankful for that, whether or not people are recognizing it. And the problem I see with a lot of clients, especially servant-minded individuals, and that's almost the only type of people that I work with, is that they go to the point where they have these expectations of people based off of their servantness, right? Like, I'm going to serve you. And then obviously because of that, you should be grateful and you should think that I'm an awesome person and you should want to reciprocate those things at work or at home or on the field, right? And that's where resentment starts to take its place because you're angry at people for not recognizing or not appreciating it. Or if you're not angry, then you're sad and depressed because you're like, my sense of self-worth comes from what you think of me and what you think of these things that I'm doing. And so I think it's really powerful. And it sounds like you went through that process as well of kind of disassociating my servant mentality from what other people think of me. I'm going to serve because it is who I am. That is my identity. It's the thing that I find self-worth in myself. And if you appreciate that, great. And if you do not, that's on you.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit more, as touting that these individuals that I'm speaking with are high performers and high achievers. Obviously, they've done some awesome things in their life, and you are no different. The ironic part is I typically have to tell people when I reach out to them, hey, you're a high achiever. I know you don't want to admit it, right? Because most people are humble like yourself. But you've done some awesome things in your life thus far. So you obviously, played collegiately in athletics. You've had some tremendous opportunities for careers. You've started business. You've written 3 books. What have been some of the most impactful achievements that you felt you have accomplished thus far in your life?
Obviously, the big ones is fun, like saying like you wrote 3 books or you run like a national podcast or you've started a business. Those all sound like the really cool things. But a lot of it just stems from the daily habits that I do. Those other things that sound so big and cool could not be what they were besides the little things that I do each day. So little things to me is I wake up at 4 a.m., I go work out right away. I do all my meal prep on a weekend. So I grocery shop, do all my meal prep. So breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, all of it. Do my dishes right after. So I don't have to worry about that throughout the week at all. I don't have to worry about food. I get my health set. It helps financially as well. So that way I'm not tempted to go eat out. Just developing discipline and consistency has been the biggest thing for me that allows me to be able to do all these other things. I mean, because then I'll wake up and I'll go on days where I record a podcast, I'll start working at 7 a.m. and I'll work till 9, 10 o'clock at night. And it's just because now I feel so comfortable with the path that I have for myself that distractions are just taking me off the path that I want. And when there's no worse feeling than making a promise to yourself that you're going to do something and then you don't do it. Because how can I keep a promise to someone else if I can't even keep one to myself? So sometimes it is a road less traveled by yourself. Sometimes you are alone doing it, but the fact that you know your why, that you know the purpose that you're doing something makes it all the more worth it in the end. it makes it realize that it's not personal to your friends if you don't always hang out with them. If anything, it just would make them respect what you're doing more because you have a sense of purpose that I think a lot of other people don't have. And they go through life. Sometimes they go out drinking on the weekends just to maybe numb certain feelings, to be able to get a break from the week. I feel very fortunate to have found a path that I like to, this is quote, air quotes, if you can't see it, is even work on the weekends. It's not work-life balance to me. It's work-life integration, where sometimes I can't even tell. Is this so cool that I get to do this and get paid to do this, or that I like doing this? And I don't know, just having that dogged determination to, once you set your mind on something, to completely focus and cut off all other options is very hard. But at the same time, it's also one of the most rewarding things. And I have a couple of tattoos, but one I got about a year ago on my forearm is an oak tree with an acorn at the bottom. And one thing I constantly work at is patience. And it's a constant reminder that everything big once started off as something small. And it's very easy sometimes in this day and age to get pinged, dinged, everything from social media, emails, all this stuff. So the other night when I was eating dinner outside, I just looked at a tree, probably for 30 minutes, just being out in nature. And it was so cool because you realize the biggest oak in the forest is the one that's been there for hundreds of years. It has withstood storms. It has this ginormous network of roots underneath the ground. It's thick and bulky around, so you can't easily take it down. It's taller than the rest of the trees there, taking more sunlight and rain. So it's maybe superior to some of the other ones around it simply because it stayed put. So just even being open to the surroundings around you. And while I do have a very busy work schedule on the weekends, I like to leave them open as possible for more creative thinking. Because during the week, it's very structured. So just finding a schedule that works for you and then sticking to it is the biggest thing over time. I mean, being from the background in the performance world and physical health, is the best path to get the body you want in fitness is you just eat similar foods. You do workout routines. You're very disciplined. It's not the new sexy diet or pill or stuff that you're on that's going to get you there. It's just being consistent.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I have a tree analogy that I'm going to share with you here in a moment. Actually, it's from this. Where's that? My fingers. I have right there. I'll show it to you here in a second, but you're going to enjoy it. I love your oak tree analogy. That's phenomenal. One of the things I have found, and one of my guilty pleasures is I have a friend who we went to high school together, and we don't see each other anymore. We don't actually have adult human conversations. The only way that we communicate is through memes and videos on Instagram. That's the only way, is through those videos. And so we send each other funny videos that we think are hilarious. And the reason we do it is because it brings us back to our childhood, and it kind of just reminds us of the simpler times, right? But one time he sent me a video of a guy who, wakes up, 4 a.m. and he has his shake, and he does his business, and he does the journaling and the infrared light on his face and the cold plunging and the working out and the walking treadmill and yada, yada. It was this whole morning routine, right? And he just sends me this video, and he's like, dude, this guy is nuts. And I had to laugh and be like, dude, that's me. I don't do all the light therapy. That I haven't gotten into that much yet, but like the cold plunging and the waking up and the journaling and the meditation, the mindfulness. And so it's just ironic, one, that he didn't know that I did a lot of this stuff, but two, that people see that and they go, that is insane. That is so much effort for very little reward, blah, blah, blah. And the challenge that a lot of people have in that level of understanding discipline is that they think that discipline is some sort of character trait. And what I found is discipline is not, it is a practice. But even more to the point is that a lot of that is a lot of work, right? That's a lot of effort if you don't know why you're doing it. The same people who say that is crazy, that is insane, that is intense, also we're getting up at 5:30 in the morning to go get yelled at by some middle-aged person in a basketball court and put in hours upon hours of work with their friends, right? Because a lot of us played sports, and a lot of us put in two-a-days, and a lot of us suffered miserably at the hands of coaches that maybe did or did not know what they were doing. And so, and shout outs to all the coaches out there. You're doing phenomenal work for very little pay, and we appreciate you. But the point is like, you've gone through these things before. You've done these things before because you had a purpose, you had a drive, you had direction, and therefore you had discipline. And a lot of people are missing that very piece. In fact, the model of well-being that I'm working on has a new dimension that a lot of other models don't work with, and that's the dimension of directional well-being. Mm-hmm. The idea of, do you know the path that your life is taking, and do all the other aspects of your well-being support that path? And so when you talk about your path and your discipline, you also talked about your purpose and your why. And I would venture to say, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, if you didn't have that, you wouldn't be getting up at 4 a.m. You wouldn't be meal prepping. You wouldn't be saying no to your friends' fun stuff so that you could go and do this. So tell me a little bit more about that, the impact of your purpose and your that on the reason why you're disciplined.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of stems back. I think a lot of people have seen like the Simon Sinek, the golden circle. Everything starts with why and it stems from there. And you even got the book over there.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's totally true. If you don't know why you're doing something, then you're not going to be able to stay consistent with it. I mean, you see it. Physical stuff is the easiest example. Sometimes people want to drop 10 or 15 pounds because the summer's there or the wedding's coming up. But as soon as fall hits, they put it right back on, plus some. And same with the podcast. The one I'm running now is 22, 23 episodes in. The top 1% of podcasters in the entire world do 21 episodes plus. I think about 90% of podcasts do 1 to 3 episodes. So they just stop. If you're trying to do it for the clout, for the views, for the quick buck, you're not going to be able to sustain the long-term success that it takes to be able to be great, to takes to be able to be successful, to takes to be able to build wealth. Like just that mindset of just looking at the time horizon, I think is the best way you have to be able to look through things. So I look through different phases of life with different perspectives and lenses. And I think when I realize that I'm playing a very long-term game, that gives me permission to just kind of settle in and just realize this is a lifestyle now. This is not a fad. This is not just a trend I'm going to be on. This is me. And it wraps up to now I don't just wake up at 4 a.m. I'm the kind of person that wakes up at 4 a.m. I'm the kind of person who keeps my word. So then it just becomes a part of your identity. It's not just you do an action. Now it becomes a piece of you. Yeah. And you look at people who've done amazing things, whether it's Steve Jobs creating the iPhone or Jeff Bezos and Amazon, which literally started off as a bookstore. And now you can order something and get it within 2 hours. These people, they thought they were insane. The stuff that they were doing at the time, people thought they were crazy, but they had this dogged determination. I mean, the Dyson vacuum cleaner, that took 13 years to build. One of my favorite things is the 409 house cleaner. It's called 409 because it took 409 tries to be able to get the right cleaning formula.
Oh, wow.
So just realizing that people think they're these Steve Jobs, yes, they're smart, but really all they were was persistent.
That's awesome. And they're persistent towards something they found meaningful. You can't be persistent without direction. I'm sorry, you just can't, right? Like people are like, well, I'll start working out and I'll start doing all these things and then I'll figure out what it's all for, right? And that's just not, I'm going to start working out next week, right? January 1st, all right? I'll start working out and get in better shape. To what end, right? Tell me what the purpose is. Tell me it's for your grandkids. Tell me it's so that you can show your daughter who is starting to become overweight that it's okay to take care of your body. It's show me that you want to build something for your sons or your kids or your students, right? Like those are the things that are going to get you up and get you going and get you doing the things that are important, right? Yeah, we could go all day.
And I think it's funny too, like when you look at nowadays, I mean, you can get groceries delivered to your door, you get Amazon delivered to your door, you can do online school. You don't have to leave your dwelling at all. And TikTok and stuff like it's made it easier than ever for you to just get lost. But there's also more information available than ever before to be able to start your own business, to be successful. So there's this huge trade-off where it's never been easier to do nothing, but it's also never been easier to do something. So it just kind of depends where you fall in that spectrum too.
That's powerful, Alec. That's an awesome statement. I love that. One of the things that I help because I have a lot of students where I teach in the university. And one of the things I try to tell them, because like you said, it's easy to go down the path. It's easy to get distracted. I ask them, are you creating or are you consuming? It's okay to be on Instagram if you're creating. It's okay to be on TikTok if you're creating, and it's okay to consume. We have to consume to live. But the question becomes, are you consuming more than you're creating? Are you taking in more than you're giving out in terms of value, in terms of time, in terms of energy? And that's where it's very easy to ask yourself. It's a very quick litmus test. Am I creating right now or am I consuming? And I find that in myself a lot. If I hop on Instagram to connect with some of my audience, and I find myself starting to consume a bunch of content, I'm like, no, you could be creating right now. You could be adding value to the world, not taking away. So that's kind of a test for myself. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Mm-hmm. We talk a lot on this show about these different aspects of our well-being, physical, mental, social, spiritual. Where do you think you feel you are more successful in than maybe some other people that you have communicated with or talked with? And I always try to preface that, like, I'm not, people are like, what am I better at? Well, you're not better as a human than them. Like, we're all great as humans, but where do you see yourself succeeding a little bit more than others?
This one's surface level. It's the easiest one to pick just based on the background what I do here. But on the physical realm, my background was in exercise physiology. I was a strength coach, but then just knowing that, looking at food as fuel, right? It's what am I eating to be able to empower me to do well throughout the day? Then also, I think that, you correct me if the numbers, it could be slightly off, but I think about like 75% of the U.S. population is overweight and obese right now.
Yeah, it's going to be up to 86%. I think I saw the stats in like 2030.
It's insane. Yeah. And it's just, personally for me, it's just, how do I take pride in how I look. When you walk into a room, you can tell people have this perception of you, like, wow, this person's got their stuff together. I think it's kind of a big indicator how you present yourself. Sure. Also just makes you feel good, look good, longevity. I mean, the best heart attack is the one that never happens in the first place too. So I'd rather eat healthy and exercise now rather than have a heart attack and some flabby skin later on that, like, I don't really want. So just trying to be more proactive in a lot of things I do in life rather than reactive. And a lot of life, when you look at it, is only about 10% what you control and 90% what you're acting to. So how do you engineer your environment for success? How do you develop a positive mindset, which starts going over into the mental? Here, I think I have a mindset that's kind of, that's the right word I'm looking for. Just always like more optimistic. It's not saying that I ignore things that are pessimistic or reality at times, but just looking at, if there's a problem, how do I get around it? I just finished reading a book called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. And it's like, obstacles are there. They make you better. So just always having this attitude that if there's a problem, there's always a solution to be able to get it. You might not like the solution initially, but there's always a way to kind of get around what you're going for there. So the mental piece there, as well, as I feel like it's become another strength of mine that kind of has built off that physical platform as well. When you do like the way you look, you do have more confidence in a room that you walk into. I used to be kind of afraid of public speaking. Now I can go in there because I'm comfortable with myself. I'm comfortable with who I am as a person, which all kind of stems from what goes on between the ears too. So,
yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the physical realm, as we get older, like when we're younger, a lot of our physical, desires are to look good so that we can attract mates, right? Let's be honest. And I was in college. And then as we grow older, they start to change, morph. And again, it's all about, why are you working out? And so I think a big part of it for me, again, that directional well-being, what am I using my body for? And is it capable of that, right? If I want to be able to go on hikes with my family because I love being outdoors and being social with them, I need to be able to hike, which means I need to probably not carry a bunch of excess body weight and have a VO2 max that matches it. I think Peter Attia's book Outlive, which is right over here on my shoulder, I keep pointing to things for those people who only listen to this podcast. I have a ton of books behind me, so check out the video sometime. But he talks about this idea, like if you want to hike at a 3% incline, that's going to take a VO2 max of X, and so if you want to, and the trend of losing VO2 max over our years, which is a real thing, even if you're healthy, is this. So by the age of 30, you need to have a VO2 max of 52 if you want to have a VO2 max of 48, which is required for blah blah. So it's a really calculated precision based way of knowing what the health is that you need. But again, it all comes back to, do you know why you want to be healthy? And if it's just, well, I used to have 6-pack abs when I was in high school, it's like, yeah, you did, because you had a metabolism like a horse, and you worked out, 2 days a week, and you cared because you wanted to look good for the girls or the guys, or whatever you're trying to attract. And so now it's got to change, and your mentality has to change. So I love that sentiment. But physical health is a great way to build the discipline in all these other fields. And I think that that's something you've shared today, is that is a great foundational way to build discipline in other areas of your life. What Alec, would you say is the areas of your dimensional wellness, the areas of your wellness that you feel maybe you're trying to continue to improve on over the years?
Yeah, even I think there's always room for improvement. And if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think self-actualization is the top of the pyramid. Mm-hmm. And once you realize that you're never going to reach the top of the pyramid, I think that gives you permission to be able to just be a lifelong learner. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I know I need to constantly do better at is sometimes I get so in my own lane and thought that I realize I can maybe use a couple more social relationships, a little more personal relationships sometimes, to just be able to maybe break off from the work a little bit. As it gains a different perspective, it gives your time, it gives the brain a little time to refresh so you can hit it back harder the next day. So I'm constantly working at building new relationships with people. And I found that to be kind of difficult when you realize that you are on a path that no one else is on, other people don't understand. It's really hard sometimes to find like-minded individuals who are like that, since I'm a firm believer in the circle of 5, or just the people who you surround yourself with are who you kind of start to become in a way. And what's really cool is I actually have some friends who've started a run club, and it's a bunch of just young professionals, driven people who like health, fitness, kind of similar drives. And that's been a really fun outlet. And it's an hour a week that you go there and you can meet new people off that, rather than just going to a bar on the weekend when you have no idea who you're talking to or where they've been or what people's intentions are. I think I'm just a firm believer in environment, whether it's just the people you surround yourself with and you're working with, or just not buying cookies at the grocery store so you can't eat them later at night. Because it's harder to put the temptation there and not do it, rather than just make it not even a possibility in the first place. Kind of when it comes to stuff like that.
That's great. That's actually a tremendous segue. I promised to talk more about this pine cone behind me, so I'll share a little bit about it. I'm going to go grab it real quick.
All right.
So for those just listening, I'm holding up a pine cone that's about the size of a lime, right? Do you know where this is from? Do you know what kind of tree this is?
I don't.
This is a sequoia.
Okay.
So the largest trees, arguably the largest single organisms in the world, right? You mentioned that, you love that idea of the oak coming from the smallest of things. This is a sequoia. We're talking hundreds of feet in the air, huge. If you haven't seen them, lifetime, definitely bucket list thing to do. And why I share this is because the sequoias grow hundreds of feet in the air, right? I'm talking massive. Their roots go down 6 feet. So for all of the growth that they occur up, they only go down 6 feet, right? And you think to yourself, well, why don't they fall over? And they do from time to time. But with all the height, and if anybody's ever seen them, these things are massive. They only have 6 feet of roots underneath to hold them stable. The only way that they're capable of growing that high and not toppling over is because as they grow, their roots go out and they intertwine with the sequoias around them. And what that allows them to do by intertwining with the other sequoias is they support each other. They could not stand without the support of the other sequoias around them. So to your point, we cannot stand successfully without the people that we surround ourselves with. And so I think to your point, there's so much power in this identification of consistency, right? A sequoia doesn't want to be the largest organism. It just wants to grow. It just wants to become what it is. And it's just going to do that day in and day out. So consistency and discipline in what we're doing towards our purpose. A sequoia just is going to become a sequoia. It doesn't really think of it. It just does it. We are blessed with a gigantic prefrontal cortex, which allows us to have much more logical aspects of our life and perceive the future, right? Like understand that there's more to this thing called life coming up. And through that consistency and discipline with a direction and purpose and the connection we have with other people around us, that is what allows us to self-actualize to who we can possibly become. So I think that that's a phenomenal way to look at our lives. And I really appreciate that opportunity to learn from you about that oak tree and being consistent. I think that's an awesome lesson people can take from today.
I agree. Even when you think about it too, like if, for example, like an oak tree, the ones that are the strongest and largest over 50, 100, hundreds of years, are the ones that stayed put and have that same network. I'm not telling people not to move around, but if you're constantly the tree who uproots yourself and keeps moving around, you're never going to grow to be the tallest. And it kind of transfers into this thing of whether you're starting a business or you keep job hopping, there is going to be parts of every job or phase of life that you don't like. Mm-hmm. And if you keep going through the honeymoon phase and then down again, where you get disappointed and feel failure and then jump ship every time, you're just in this constant hamster wheel, and you're never going to get the benefits of after you plummet to going up to the good pieces from that. So sometimes the best thing to do is just nothing at all and stay put. And that's hard for people. And it's myself too. Sometimes that's a constant reminder. I don't want to pretend like I have life figured out on here on this either. I don't want to preach that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think to your point, you mentioned like not doing nothing. It's like, well, it's staying put and learning from those opportunities, weathering that storm, right? Yeah. Because the strongest of trees, they've done studies, the strongest of trees are the ones who have to weather wind and rain and storms. That's what makes them stronger. And that's what allows them the opportunity to be resilient as they go through other aspects of their life. So that's phenomenal. Alec, where can people go? What can people do to learn more about what you have going on? You obviously have 3 books, so obviously, shout out to those real quick, and then tell us how we can continue to learn from you on this journey.
Yeah, the 3 books I have, the first one was Conquer Yourself. For lack of a better term, it's almost more like personal development and self-improvement, just having self-mastery over yourself, and then everything else falls into place from there. The second one was the Conquer Your Habits, so it's almost like partial book, partial journal. You can be able to write down some of your thoughts to make sure you're on the consistent pathway that you're looking to stay upon and grow from. And the other one was a sales book, which sales gets a bad rap, but it's just more so how do you actually deal with people? How do you be able to understand the way other people think so you can be able to help them and have a server's mindset rather than the maybe sleazier mindset people have when they hear sales of people getting scammed and stuff like that. It's teaching you some of the ways to be able to serve other people, but that actually benefit them. And the best way to find me is on LinkedIn, Alec Wons. I'm active on there all the time. And that's the easiest way. I'm always active on there. And please reach out if anyone has questions, needs advice, just want to follow along for ideas, maybe how to start growing your personal brand or next thing you want to start. I'm more than happy to connect with anybody.
Alec, appreciate you, buddy. Keep doing the amazing things that you're doing to make this world a better place.
Thank you. You as well. I appreciate you having me on today. I appreciate what you're doing to be able to help others through the multidimensional wellness landscape as well. It's definitely needed, and I appreciate the work you're doing.
Awesome. Thanks, bud.